I want to kill myself.
Well done, Sean.
That's so embarrassing. See, I just fall over myself doing it. Happy Easter.
Well, not yet. Oh,
It is. It's Easter Sunday.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Happy Easter.
It's not Easter to us,
Christ
but it's Easter
has
to them.
risen.
Alleluia.
Happy Easter.
Yes.
He is gaining traction. He's on the what was that spaceship that Katy Perry was on?
Oh my god. Was it Blue Moon or something?
Blue Origin.
Blue Origin. Yep. He's just Oprah's crying as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
Gail King's calling him an astronaut. Like
What does Jesus do today? He goes to see Mary. And then goes back to heaven. No, he sees the apostles.
Today.
You know?
I didn't go to a Catholic school.
He did. First of all, like,
it's the religion
Jesus
of
is
your country.
not just a Catholic God. He's an everyone God.
Did you
He's
not
for
go to
everyone.
like Church of Scotland or whatever?
I don't remember getting taught any of this in school. Like we must have in primary school.
See,
but
that's
I don't remember
that's
it.
woke England, isn't it? Well, woke Scotland, isn't it? Yeah, that's devolved nation.
I feel like that feels very Church of Scotland, very Presbyterian to not tell you that. But like they don't believe that the bread is the body, so they're probably the same when it comes to the resurrection, right?
Yeah. Okay. Should we do the questions?
Yeah, let's do the
As
questions.
much as the Easter preamble was good.
Yeah. We hope
What are
you're
you all
having a
having
fantastic
for your
morning.
Easter lunch? Comment below. Sean told us quite a rogue thing he was thinking about having for his lunch today.
I'm thinking about making some mussels for my lunch today.
Do you not believe that mussels are sentient? Is that why?
They aren't sentient,
But some
but they don't
people-
have a nervous system.
So it's all right. Yeah,
Yeah.
some people subscribe to that.
I did think that it was okay for the longest time. I can't remember who had said it to me, but had said mussels and
Oysters.
and
You can
what's
get a
the
good
other one?
£1 oyster at a lot of places these days.
no, I don't think scallops. Although that would make sense because scallops are basically the same thing, right?
Mollusks, aren't they? All of
Yeah,
them.
yeah, all of them that are. Oh no, there's a bivalve. Is it a bivalve?
We are really scraping the barrel. Jesus.
But no, for the longest time, I did think that it was okay to eat mussels and oysters and that kind of thing. And last Christmas, I went overboard.
Surely you'd have it tomorrow though, because it's a fish adjacent, isn't it? So
Tomorrow being
Good Friday. Well,
Friday.
you'd have had it last Friday.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I wouldn't
2
want to
days
date
ago.
it.
Yeah, no, I was torn on whether it was going to be the Sunday or the Friday. It could be both days.
Jesus Christ, you sound like that guy in Derry Girls. What's his name?
You said that before. You said that before. I don't think
Could be
I'm
the
rambling
Sunday.
that much.
Could be the Friday.
Both
What's
days,
that?
maybe.
What's that other mollusk?
Should we do the audience question?
Let's do the audience questions. We're
Let's
starting
start
from
by
the
going
top.
in a circle and asking each other to name a mollusk.
I think you're the only one that hasn't named the mollusk.
No, well, anyway, should we do Little Attorney?
Yes. So, Little Attorney 1287 asks, do you think Labour's plan to lower the voting age to 16 could backfire and end up benefiting reform in the next election if things don't
Can
significantly
we come back to
improve
that?
for
Should
the
we
youth?
just warm up for a hot
Yeah,
minute?
that's
Yeah,
quite
yeah,
a heavy
yeah.
one,
Jesus
isn't it? Let's
Christ.
do a less serious one.
Okay. All right, here we go. Let's pick it up a notch. If you knew, this is not Joseph, if you knew you were about to be betrayed and crucified, what would your last supper be, Laura?
That's a really fitting name, not Joseph as well.
Not Joseph.
For a Christian question. Yeah. Ooh, good
Judas
question.
would be better, wouldn't it?
Not
Not
Judas.
Judas.
Yeah.
My Not Judas t-shirt is making a lot of people think I'm Judas.
Surely on Sunday he'd be fine with being Judas again.
What, because he rose? Jesus rose.
Maybe on Monday he's feeling better about
To be
being
fair,
Judas.
though, the Bible wouldn't have had that wonderful climax had he not betrayed Jesus.
Well, we certainly wouldn't have a 4-day weekend had it not been for Judas.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it?
Yeah. So thank you, Judas.
What would my last supper be? I don't. Maybe something really like boring cop out like McDonald's answer. I
Yeah.
feel like when you are reading, or have you ever read the last prisoners on death row, their last meals?
Yeah.
And some of them are totally bizarre and
Like
insane.
steak and
Like
chips
one
and stuff.
olive with pit in. Like,
Yeah.
totally insane.
I think they've got rid of the Last Supper.
They did, because people were just like taking the mick a bit. So they said,
I thought it was because, and this is based on nothing, I just made an assumption that the lethal injection wasn't working, so they had to keep handing out too many last dinners. That it fails so many times.
Happened to?
It fails all the
Yeah.
time, that
Yeah.
lethal injection, yeah.
I swear we were talking about that on the desk once, that there was somebody that had 3 or 4 last meals.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, I don't know what kind of cat-handed doctor they're getting in there. But, it's probably
well, doctors aren't allowed to do it at all. That's part of the problem.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah, because
is that what it
the
is?
They take the
Hippocratic
Hippocratic
oath.
oath, so they can't do it.
Oh my God, so it literally is like Bob from accounts.
So, yeah.
They're like, I'll get Neil up.
Not an advocate for the death penalty, but the way the Japanese do it.
Yeah.
Is that firing squad?
No.
Okay.
No. It's a firing squad.
It's hanging,
actually.
no?
It's yes.
But they've
yeah,
each
yeah.
got a button.
Oh, yeah. it has
So we have a soft spot for a YouTuber called Hoog. Well, I do, and I force Hoog upon the rest of you whenever Hoog has a new video out. And a while ago, they did a video on the death penalty in Japan. And what they do is they first isolate you and don't give you a date for when you're going to be executed. So you're in solitary confinement from the moment that you're sentenced. And you could be in solitary confinement for 4 years, 10 years, however long it might be. So the psychological torture
that's
is
worse than
already
actually
enough.
just getting the death penalty.
There are a lot of people who actually don't end up being executed, but are not aware that there are legal battles to save them.
You're joking.
Yeah, because they have no connection to the outside world
Jeez.
whatsoever. So there might be a lawyer trying to save them, and they have no idea.
I'd go mad. I'm so claustrophobic.
I think they do. They have quite a big room, but they're just in solitary. But the thing with the police, with the 3 or prison guards, whatever, with the 3 buttons in front of them, only one of the buttons works, and none of the 3 prison guards
Yeah.
know which button is the one that works.
So they don't
Is-
know if they've killed.
Is
yeah.
that like to prevent them having guilt and like
Exactly.
the psychological?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Really interesting.
So your Last Supper would be?
Probably one of the Japanese inmates that got executed.
Yeah?
I don't know. And another one that we were talking about on the desk, isn't it? I can't think of anything that, like, I wouldn't eat meat again. I wouldn't.
No, because
yeah.
can you imagine if it turned up and you just didn't fancy it?
Yeah.
I really honestly would want a packet of cigarettes and like,
Chain them.
yeah, I mean, if I could have beer with it, that would be better. But definitely the cigarettes.
It's quite a cool way to go out, isn't it?
Well, I don't know, because I don't know. I'd be too worried to order rolling tobacco, because imagine if they didn't get like all of the accoutrements. Like imagine if you got the tobacco and they forgot the papers or something like that. And then you just
have
you
to
had to
chew
chew
it.
it.
Like,
yeah. Or like light it on fire like a little bonfire.
like in the thing and
yeah. Yeah.
just go, bob, like a smoke signal. What did
What
Jesus
beer?
and the boys
That's what
have
I
for
was
the
just
Last
wondering
Supper?
that.
Oh, I don't know, probably fish and bread. He was
Yeah,
always doing that,
Yeah.
not
wasn't
much
he?
choice back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever you were going around is it was always fish and bread,
Or
wasn't
it
it?
could be like hummus and flatbread and that kind of thing. Surely they had hummus back then as well.
I don't know.
They must have had hummus back in.
I don't know, it'd probably be
in
more
Jesus
lumpy than you
days.
get it now, though. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, massively. Well, sure, they wouldn't have had a blender back in Jesus' day to make hummus with.
Should we do another one?
Yeah.
We've warmed up a little bit.
Are we going back serious?
Oh, I tell you what, let's just do let's do this one. C. Taylor 13. What's your best podcast? Because I think your best YouTube was Hoog. What's your best podcast?
I've really been enjoying the BBC Sounds podcasts recently.
Same.
Yeah, the Stalked one. Have you listened to that?
No.
That is amazing. It's this BBC journalist, and her stepdaughter was really badly stalked to the point that they were like hacking into her phone contract and cancelling her phone contract, cancelling her dad's phone contract, like totally isolating and insane. And she went to the police with the case, and the police were like, this is too much work. Like, as in
Really?
to track down who this would be so much police resources, and we don't have that time. So her stepmom, as an investigative journalist, got the resources, and they have kind of began to solve the case.
Wow.
Jesus.
That's really good. In Dark Corners, I also enjoyed listening to on BBC Sounds, and also anything by Tortoise. I love their investigative podcasts as well.
Yeah.
Pig Iron is amazing by them, which is about the line between like mercenaries and journalists, and asks this question of when does a journalist in a war zone cease to be a journalist and start to be a participant?
That's really interesting.
So interesting. And then they did a really good one about, do you remember in Highgate, the people that accused there of being like a satanic paedophile ring and were accusing parents of children at their school of being involved in this and like
really?
genuinely ruining their lives, and then it was all a hoax.
Really?
Where, in
Yeah,
Highgate?
in Highgate, in London, and they did,
Highgate?
Yeah, Highgate.
You should keep saying Highgate.
Sorry.
It was like a space in, like, I don't know, off the Isle of Skye. Like,
You know, up in Highgate.
I'm just gonna say North London now.
Near the cemetery.
Yeah, but that is amazing as well, and that's also Tortoise. So that's what I've been listening to recently.
I feel like mine are nowhere near as academic as that. I'm really enjoying Vittorio's Guide to Parenting. I think that's
It's very
so
funny. Very, very funny. We must get Vittorio in for a PMQs.
Yeah, we must.
We've had the other 2/3 of the
trilogy.
Finn Taylor universe in. Yeah.
Well, what's his name? Horatio, who was on here the other day. He wrote one of the best jokes I've ever heard, which is the Fritzl joke.
Oh, the one where Ollie was...
Yeah.
Finn versus the internet. Yeah.
That was That was. It takes so much.
Shovel in a dream.
I think, like with like the state of like online discourse, it takes so much to shock me, and that I actually had to stop. I
couldn't believe it. It's outstanding.
Oh my god! A shovel and a dream.
Would that
a
win the
shovel and a
Fringe?
dream. That is, it's unbelievable.
Joe Fritzl. More
yeah.
Joe Fritzl.
I really like that. I also think Finn versus History is really good.
I've really been enjoying Screen Rot as well
Screen
since we
Rot's
had
great.
Jacob Hawley on.
I'm
I'm
on it actually this week.
Are you?
Yeah, it might be.
You were saying that.
Might be
I
out
didn't
by the time
realise
this
that
comes
they
out.
have.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's exciting.
But I really let loose.
Are you their first guest?
So I'm a bit
Yeah, you must be their first guest.
second apparently, first woman.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
you
Yeah.
go, girl.
Can you say who you guys discussed?
Well, we actually ended up talking about Bonnie Blue for ages accidentally. Weirdly, okay, actually, I don't even want to direct
It's
people
the
to it
only
because some
thing
of the
that they
things
can
I
think
said.
of when they're talking to a woman. It's just like, I know another woman.
Yeah. And then, who did we talk about? Oh, emotions in life. Because he's like this guy who sits in his car and screams like about how women need to love themselves.
Right.
But basically, I had loads of screen recordings of him doing lives. So like, anyway, and then the other one we just did like UK Labour, their posts.
That's a good
That
episode.
is really good, yeah.
We haven't heard
They
it yet.
could probably
excited
do a
for
full
that.
hour of UK Labour.
Yeah, I think so. We actually we had to. I think we got a good like 15 minutes out of it, but because we were talking about Body Blue for so long. But anyway, we talked. Yeah, it was a lot actually.
Such
that.
is the nature
Oh
of the
yeah,
format.
at one point he asks me like what birth control I'm on. So if you want to find out,
You know where to go, listener.
yeah. Okay, should we do more serious ones?
Okay.
Okay, but there'll be more. Yeah, because I just feel bad that we never sort of like. Right, let's try and rattle through a few. How long have we got? Oh, we got time.
Let's start on the first one, because I think that is actually quite a good question.
Go on then.
So, do you think Labour's plan to lower the voting age to 16 could backfire and end up benefiting reform in the next election if things don't significantly improve for the youth? Well,
I really struggle with the voting age at 16 as a principle. Sorry, in principle, I agree with it because I think if you're allowed to have a job, if you're paying tax, if you're you're allowed to get married, you can join the army. I do think that you should be cadets, but you should be allowed to have a say in like the political persuasion of the country. Like if you've got a stake in there because you're a taxpayer, I do think you should have a say.
you should be able to participate in all aspects of society.
Yeah, and I really don't buy these arguments that's like, they're so immature, they'll just do a protest vote. Da, da, da. It's like, listen, people of all ages, do you really think that people suddenly mature at 18? Because they don't.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the take-up is there. I think that there's polling company. some of the charities or the activists who are really pushing for the votes for 16, they'll do some polling, but the question is always swayed or skewed a little bit to in a way that I'm not confident that actually there would be a lot of turnout. So I don't think it matters.
I mean, we can vote in 16 in Scottish parliamentary elections, and I did vote at 16 in parliamentary elections, and I don't think it was a wasted vote for me and my friends, because I think 16-year-olds that are interested in politics will turn out and vote. But I think if they're not, they just won't vote. But I think that's no more so than the public in general.
Exactly. Voter turnout is already nothing in the UK. It's what was it? 40% of the general election.
Yeah, and voter turnout in Scotland does tend to be higher, at every level of government as well.
Oh, because you always feel like you've got something.
It can't have been that low.
You've always got a chip on your shoulder. I think as well, but the other part of the question being that it will backfire in the way of reform if things don't significantly improve for the youth. I think reform in many ways already have the youth. You don't think so?
No, it's 60% was the turnout. I thought
60%.
that couldn't be that though.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The other way around. I think there is a strange phenomenon across the world where young people, teenagers, are a lot... I'm not saying that by and large, young people are right-wing now. They're more right-wing than young people were when I was a teenager.
Are you meaning the polling that we came out yesterday?
So there's that. Yeah. There's certainly that. The Yale thing, right?
Yeah, but I think that's... See, again, I struggle with that polling because if you look at the questions, they are very... I'm trying to think of the word. They're not skewed.
Leading?
They're very leading questions. And so, I don't know how... the big poll that made all of the papers because it was sensationalist was that the majority of Gen Z, or a high proportion, wanted an authoritarian government. But it was such a leading question how they phrased it that it was they don't actually want to.
The question was a strong leader, right? And so taking strong leader and running with it until it's an authoritarian government.
Yeah, I think you just have to be so. You have to be so. You have to be more careful with polling. It's not really that indicative.
I think if you look at the general election turnout for 18 to 24-year-olds, it was 40% voted Labour. So it's we know that Labour still have the majority of the largest share of that age group's vote. And I think even if things don't improve for young people and young people turn away from Labour, which I think is very likely.
They'll go Green.
Because in that same age group, 18% voted Green, only 9% voted Reform. So almost double voting Green than Reform. Yeah.
I think, but it depends. I think it kind of leads us on to another question here about the Green Party that we'll come on to. But I think that's because young people vote for radical change, right? And I think if the Greens continue on the path that they're currently on, I can't imagine young people voting for them. Because at one point, I think climate change was the most pressing matter on young people's minds. And now when you speak to them, it's wages, it's getting a job after graduating, it's actually being able to afford to live in a city. It's not... So unless the Greens find a way of putting that front and centre of their manifesto, which they do have in their manifesto, they just don't promote it.
I think there are people within the Green Party, especially Zach Polanski, that are really looking to forefront that and to make the wealth tax, because they are the only party with a wealth tax in their manifesto, right? That's in Parliament.
Yeah, but Lib Dems push for it as well, don't they?
Yeah, I guess in the digital services stuff. But that is I think if they went full throttle with that, which I think there is a part of the party that is looking to do, especially Greens organise, then I think they could have that protest vote from a lot of young people who don't want to see Labour continue.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, as long as if Nigel Farage came out and there was votes for 16 and he went back to the original reform policy of abolishing student finance. Yeah, that probably will persuade people.
Have they reneged on that, or did they not go into that anymore?
I just think they didn't. It never became an official manifesto policy. It was something that Richard Tice was floating before Farage rejoined the party.
The nurses was in the manifesto, right?
Yeah.
Why
don't you guys, or do you want to just say, so As journalists, what would be the changes you think the Greens should make to be a more effective political force and appear more in the media? But you guys spoke about this quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. What day was it? Monday?
Is there like a big takeaway that you have? I mean, you guys can go and watch the Monday podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But is there any like particular takeaway that you had?
I
mean,
think
you were on the beat.
Yeah, I think kind of like what I said about pushing things like the wealth tax, things that seem more pressing to people's everyday lives, is definitely one part of it. I think the other is just Farage is a pure populist politician in the way that he interacts with the media. And we kind of said this, but if you're not one of the two main parties, you don't have the luxury of being a technocratic, bureaucratic, kind of boring leader. You have to play the populism game, which means interacting with the media through like charismatic energy. And right now that seems to be what the Greens are lacking, and is why they're kind of failing to capture as much media attention as Reform.
They are really lacking charisma, and there'll be people who complain, because I mean, like, we spoke about this in the office earlier and we'll talk about it later, about how like Gordon Brown is one of our favourite politicians because he wasn't chasing the limelight in the way that Blair was. But you do have to have a way with communicating your message. I mean, when you've got people like Adrian Ramsey in your party who's pushing for green energy but then won't let certain pylons go up in his constituency, that is a message that's
also
so
the co-leader
convoluted.
of the party, like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so convoluted, it's confusing, there's no clear message there. And the way in which he didn't even explain it, he became very frustrated in interviews and sort of acted as if this was like a non-issue, when it is a huge issue. Your principles as a politician, if they could get better at maybe there is a cohesion to those two arguments, but I don't know it because he wouldn't explain it to us, you know?
Yep.
If you could get better at communicating those principles.
But it is also like you were touching on it with the previous question as well, that like the green movement as a whole has a major identity crisis now, because most left and centre parties have adopted what traditionally the Green Party have been pushing for. So if you've got larger...
But more effectively.
Sure, but you could also say that the reason why they're doing it more effectively is because they have a larger structure around them. Bigger parties, whether it's in Germany, France, UK. So you then reach a point where those parties that you've been lobbying for 20, 30 years are adopting the policies that you've been pushing for 20, 30 years. What do you then come with? You know?
Well, you could come with it with a promise to deliver, couldn't you?
Sure, but I mean,
you've still got.
I think it's also a thing of like the difficulty with British electoral politics is that have the Greens ever been part of a coalition in the UK?
In Scotland, but not in Westminster.
Sure. Yeah.
No, because they've never been large enough.
Right. So they've been a force in Ireland. Historically, they've propped up coalition governments and they've gotten some things done.
They've been nowhere near that sort of.
It's a difference in the electoral system is the thing I'm getting at. That like if there was ever a chance for the Green Party, I think the Green Party are one of the ones that are pushing with Reform and the Lib Dems to have proportional representation, right?
Yeah.
That's the only way that they can kind of begin to have any cut through, is that you can demonstrate what you stand for. If you just are on the sidelines and you have that very idealistic way of operating, and you have kind of like, when you read the manifesto, it's kind of like a momentum-esque party policy. But if you don't have the party structure around you, if you don't have the cut through in the entire country, it's going to be very difficult for you to progress beyond being someone that's kind of just like an afterthought in the political system, you know?
Definitely, I think when sometimes the climate change movement can read like a middle class endeavour, because the sort of things that they go after are idealistic. And it doesn't mean I don't agree with a lot of them, but it's sort of like when you talk about the wild swimming, you have to be very careful with the way that you talk about it, because if you just say, with the clean water initiative, like if you just go with the wild swimming line, you alienate the majority of the country, because most people don't have time in the morning to go off and have a nice swim in the river, right? Like they have to go to work.
Or even access to
Absolutely.
Like,
But if the conversation is, you are paying too much. You're paying to line the pockets of shareholders.
Yeah, nationalise it.
Yeah, that's an entirely different policy. And I think if the Greens could harness switching their narrative with how they spoke about these issues, I think they'd have more cut through.
Because I feel like there is a space and a want in British politics for a party to occupy that realm, and it feels like the Greens can or could like step into that, but they're just maybe a bit off of it just now.
Change the name.
They need
To what?
I don't know. There's something that isn't the Green Party. You know,
I think the Greens is fine, but they need sharper candidates, and I wonder if their selection process might hinder some people coming through because
What's the process?
Well, it's super democratic.
Okay.
And I think sometimes that can hinder. The original Labour selection process before the parachuting was actually quite a good way of doing things. You know, you got an endorsement from unions, and then you'd get onto a long list, and then that'll be shortened. So you'd have to have experience in the. Anyway, that all got butchered, didn't it? The last election.
It did,
But I think it'll be interesting to see if the leadership elections for the Greens, which are in summer, have any impact on how their cut through is with mainstream media.
I think that they would be because so there's like main players like. Do you know, actually, we should move on because we're just going to talk about the Greens all day. Okay, actually, let's do Fabulous Baby 5795. Do you want to ask me this?
Okay. Well, it doesn't have your name in it, does it?
Yeah, but I mean, come on.
We can guess that it's... So Fabulous Baby 5795 asks, why do you never challenge reform? The question is going to get louder and louder and be asked by more and more viewers the longer reforms stay in contention and the closer they get to power.
So I would disagree about not challenging reform. But in the context of, if you watch my interview style with every politician that I speak to, I don't have a combative interview style. I think that doesn't really work for our channel. I don't think it really works for what we're trying to deliver, which is I'd quite like to hear them in their own words. And also, if you go back through our catalogue of when we've spoken to politicians, we actually don't ask them, or very rarely, sometimes we do, but we don't often ask them like the story of the day, the Westminster story of the day. We ask them sort of larger policy questions. For example, I just came back from Manchester and interviewed Andy Burnham about the buses, nationalising the buses, which is not a national story at the moment. It's not in the papers, but I thought it was something of interest. I thought it was a very interesting socialist policy. How did they get away with that through doing, through devolution, that sort of thing. I speak to Farage the exact same way that I speak to any other MP, and I think it's your critical decision as a viewer to decide what you think about what the politician has said. Like there's a time and place for a combative interview, and I think you can watch that on any of the national broadcasters every single day in the morning. So if you want to see challenge and perhaps a politician not finishing a sentence, fine. But if you'd like to hear a longer answer, then I think you can hear it here. I think it's just the way that we tell stories.
Yeah.
It's just a different format. It's not the same. It also, you let a politician, if a politician has fucked up, you let them do it themselves. You don't need to point it out to them. Like you as the viewer can make an assessment from what they've said. I don't think that everything that, actually, I don't think any of the pieces have been particularly glowing that we've done. Especially not the ones from a couple of years ago. Or even recently, we just show you who is at these events, who's attending, how they're gaining momentum.
It's up to the audience to decide, what they think of a party or what they think of a policy.
Absolutely, and it's important to remember that we're not activists. You probably wouldn't see, the typical person who watches PoliticsJOE probably wouldn't see reform, the inside of it, because of the way that their algorithm is set up, unless you see it here. How do you know how to form your opinion if you don't know how the other side is operating? And if your only experience with reform is Nigel Farage, you're not getting an accurate depiction of what's actually happening with that party in the country.
Or what they're latching on to, or why people are identifying with the party, or whatever it might be. Like if you're stuck in your silo you're never going to understand. I guess it's kind of the same with Brexit or 2019 or anything like this, that oftentimes people are surprised by the result of any vote or any demonstration of democracy because they don't interact with people of the opposing view on a day-to-day basis. And so to have a platform and not a platform, but to make reports like we do is to show parties as they are rather than to be critical of parties as they are, you know.
And then the podcast is really the space of where
Exactly.
we would then make a critique or an analysis of it.
I think also as well, if you go back from the very beginning of like your coverage of reform when it was still led by Richard Tice, like to just watch, if you watched all the pieces we have made about, or you specifically have made about reform back to back, you have almost the full story of how the party has grown into and where it ended up in 2024 in just a pure like documentary style, because that is what it is. It's documenting their rise and how they've got here and how they've managed it.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan. I think especially as I get, well, actually I've never been like this, but especially as I get a bit older, I'm not a fan of like good and bad political actors. Like I don't believe that there is one party or one person who is inherently good and someone who is inherently bad. Like I think sometimes there's a tendency for this sort of footballification of politics where, especially just after the election, it was a sin to criticise Labour, and we'd get streams and streams of comments sort of arguing that, you know, that we were being unfair. That's not the point. The point is you are a voter and you can watch what the content that we provide, and then you make a decision, hopefully an informed decision, about how you would like to spend that vote. But we're not here to tell you how to vote, if that makes sense. I don't know. Maybe we're going on a little bit.
No, I think everything that's been said is fair.
Okay,
Correct.
Let's keep going.
Should we
Should
have
do a fun
lighthearted
one?
ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, go on then.
Break it up. You pick one.
Oh, actually, do you know what? Can we just get one out the way? Can we get GoPez UK out the way?
Yes. Sam, could you also please give me a time code for where we are now?
36:35.
Thank you.
Do you want to read that one, Laura?
Yeah. On the 100th episode, Ava suggested she had considered voting leave during the Brexit referendum. Can we hear what her reasons were?
So it actually wasn't during the referendum, but I was quite pissed on the 100th episode. Drunk, so maybe I wasn't drunk, I was tipsy, but maybe.
And you were pissed as well.
Maybe
angry.
No, it wasn't then that I was considering voting leave in the referendum. I would say that I was Eurosceptic. Probably around. Wait, I worked it out the other day because we were talking about it at the office, weren't we? It would
the
have been
Europeans before the.
Oh, don't age me. 11.
Well, you're Scottish, so you were eligible to vote then.
So it would have been around like 2011 is when I was like, no, later than that. Yeah, no, 2012. I would say that I was Eurosceptic, and it was because I think I was just reading a lot of like socialist literature, and I found the EU as a concept rather bureaucratic.
It's a super neoliberal, or like I think if you're looking at it from an economic perspective, it's very neoliberal, and it's like the whole Lexit argument at the time, like the left-wing exit from the European Union. But I think in terms of like international relations and social policy, it is very progressive. But I think if you're just looking at it purely economic, it's very neoliberal. So it's like a bit. I see both sides.
It's reached a point where it's impossible
like
to
SNP.
flourish. Independence for Scotland is a great idea on paper, but nobody's going to want to deal with you anymore. Is there someone at the door?
Are you coming in? Oh no, it's Connor.
Oh,
All right, let's rattle through because we're going to have to start doing the. Did you want to add something?
cool. Me?
Yeah.
No, I think maybe actually. Do I want to say that now? Yeah, I'll say it now because they're probably gonna have some fun in Reddit afterwards. If I lived here during the Brexit referendum, I probably would have voted leave.
On the
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you also weren't here to see the sort of like the the discourse. It was like discourse inferno. Like
Yeah.
it was insane. Some of the things that were being said, it was just. I can't keep going over it, but it honestly, it became an argument onto itself. If you were here and you'd seen the sort of anti-immigration rhetoric.
Sure. On the surface level, I think leaving the European Union, had I lived here at the time, I would have voted leave. Knowing what the discourse was, I think I would have been swayed to be Remain, just because of how toxic the Leave campaign was.
Yeah.
I also think you can be like ideologically pure and leftist and vote to leave, but on a practical level, if you actually want to look at what's hurting the everyday person in the UK, it probably was a bit more hurtful for the working person.
Yeah,
on
of
a
course
practical
it was.
level.
Absolutely, yeah.
So like, what's there's a tension
absolutely.
there.
But
I mean,
again, it goes
you
back to the
hurt
point
Irish
about
people
having.
a lot. You hurt Irish people a lot.
I know, but one thing at a
Hurt
time.
Italians, hurt Italians, hurt Spanish,
Oh, I don't
hurt
think the Italians
Portuguese.
can, come on.
Oh, absolutely.
We've got to be a bit careful
Absolutely.
there because we hurt a few people as well. Look, it goes back to the sort of like that there is no, in politics, this footballification, it's not Leave bad, Remain good, because actually a lot of the bad faith actors were in the Remain campaign. I mean, David Cameron was a Remainer. You know, would you say that he was sort of the pinnacle of social justice? Actually, do you know, oh my God, thinking about it, he was actually quite socially liberal. Anyway, but he was think about all the stuff that he did with Greensill afterwards. And, you know, that to me is the EU. There is so much sort of backpocketing and bureaucracy that's...
Or the European VP of Meta, Nick Clegg, as well.
all of this sort of crap. Anyway, look, a conversation for another time. Okay, here we go. Laura, could you tell us a bit about yourself and why you got into journalism? This is the uninvisible man. We've heard what you've studied in university, and we could probably conspiracy board a piece a lot of your lives together if we wanted to. Weird. But could you give us a sense of how you ended up here? This would be a question for anyone comfortable answering it.
I think it's such a boring answer, but just I was always loved watching documentaries and reading the news and watching the news. Like, it was just something I enjoyed doing, even like quite young, I guess. And then I guess when I saw people like Louis Theroux, and then when I was older reading people like Hunter S. Thompson and stuff, it was just, oh, I want to do that. I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to do like Westminster politics as much as like now I do, but I think I always knew I wanted to be telling stories and like being involved in that process.
She wanted to be at the Scottish Sun.
And then when I went to uni, did politics and got involved in student journalism, and also did some work experience at a couple different places in Scotland, and then came to London, and now I'm here.
Here you are.
They're very interested in you, Sean.
I was going to say.
As a fellow Irishman, I would appreciate learning more about Sean, but no pressure.
I didn't do any journalism in university at all, actually. I did, but I was quite similar to you. I studied film, was into kind of visual storytelling, then realized that doing a film studies course wasn't necessarily conducive to the kind of storytelling, like non-fiction storytelling. Ended up going into radio, did a podcast in uni, really enjoyed kind of like the operations of that, of like not even just the hosting of a podcast, but how everything around a product like that works. And yeah, then like reading books, got really into, he's retired now. There's a journalist in Ireland called Vincent Browne, the Uninvisible Man, probably knows who that is, who really, really inspired me when I was in my early to late teens. Just got really into politics through him. I was radicalized during like the IMF and ECB bailouts in Ireland, so I got really into politics, really into that kind of thing. And yeah, I guess all of them kind of gelled into one thing, and I guess that's kind of what this is, right? You could end up like doing any of the constituent parts of anything that you took an interest in at some point, but it seems like this is like the amalgamation of all interests. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I also want, like, you mentioning like being young during the bailout and stuff. I wonder as well, like, because I was in high school during both the Scottish referendum and the Brexit referendum, if it was a particularly politicising time for young people, like especially in Scotland, because there was such a big youth movement in both of those things. Like all my friends like were very aware of what was going on politically, maybe more so than at normal times because of that. So I wonder if that has a part in it too.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
mean, it definitely did here because like everyone I was friends with, their parents, everyone was just like totally cunted by it because like it wasn't like people working in the city like necessarily that. I mean, obviously they took a pretty big hit if you got, you know, sacked or like when Lehman crashed, but like it's all the subsidiary jobs that went around it. You know, like if you were like a cab driver or like you worked, like maybe you had a restaurant near there or you had a cafe near there, or, you know what I mean? It was all of those sort of jobs that sort of just like vanished overnight. And like that had like a huge knock-on effect to like, honestly, loads of people that I went to school with were like really affected by the crash. Like, I mean, I guess that's, you could say that, sorry, the same for like up and down the country, because obviously everyone was to an extent. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
But everyone has a story around that
politicising
time, you know?
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, like, definitely, like, anyone with a mortgage was just like, you know, suddenly like, fuck.
Yeah.
You know, obviously I had a mortgage in 2008. That's how I got ahead, fellas.
What's your origin story?
I liked the news. I liked a lot. I don't know. But I didn't really do anything at uni. I did like a bit of Radio Falmer when I was there, and I loved, like you, just like the putting pieces together, like organising a radio show, like all of that. I loved it. And then I was on my year abroad, and then I was just like, when I come back to London, I have to get some work. So I got onto the Condé Nast training scheme. I don't know if they still do. It's not a training scheme. It's like an intern scheme where basically like in the morning they'll tell you which brand you're going to, and they pay you 60 quid a day, which is basically your travel, because you have to dot about quite a lot, and your lunch. People are going to be like, that's way more. Try living here, pal. Like, honestly, you can't get anything with that. If you're traveling
here,
around,
like, you got paid to do
Yeah,
things
to
like
do your
that?
well, no, because it was basically like your stipend, because they might send you to like you're going all over London as a runner, so like it's your money to travel with, if you know what I mean. Or you might have to pick up coffees for like whoever's on set, and that's what you would do. Anyway, I really loved radio, and I got work experience at 2 radio stations during that time. And then I spent a year basically working between those 2 radio stations, Waitrose, and going to uni, all in one. And then at the end of it, they both offered me a job actually, but I took the
radio.
no, they're both radios did, but I took LBC. Yeah. What
There's
was
something...
what job did I take? Assistant producer, I think I took.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I'd imagine so. That's the natural pipeline, isn't it?
1, I think it was.
What, AP1?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. They chose well. There's something really romantic, I think, about the traditional media, especially when you're young, and you're starting out. Like, I'd worked in a couple of TV stations, radio stations, and just seeing, like, I remember I was on Erasmus in Finland, and we were brought to this racing track. And they were just showing us how they broadcast and what they do. And the only place for this horse racing was in the off licenses in Finland. And they do it really strangely in Finland as well. They don't ride on the back of the horse. They ride in a buggy behind the horse and go around the track like that.
Really?
Yeah. It
seems so dangerous.
Insane. But being in the little caravan on the side of the racing track and seeing like all the screens and all this kind of thing. And at that point, I think I had done like maybe a week's work experience somewhere at some point when I was doing my course.
An
and I was
outside
like,
broadcast is like nothing else though.
yeah,
like that is
it's
just
so much fun.
Honestly, yeah, it is.
But it's like,
Did you ever go to do the conference ones?
with LBC, no, I didn't. No.
Just like the tech of all that. Oh, have I told the story about the time that we had to keep the breakfast show on air, and like they wouldn't pay for the Wi-Fi, so we had to keep logging into the Wi-Fi at every ad break, and the Wi-Fi had a 15-minute timer.
Oh my god.
So like, I mean, it was typical them. Like we had to like they're not like that now. Actually, they're quite like big spenders. But
Yeah.
then it was like at the top of the hour, we'd throw back to London to do the bulletin, like log back into the Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
do the 15 minutes. Again, throw back to London to output the adverts because nothing was coming from there. It was all
No,
just,
it was just
feed,
coming
wasn't
straight
it?
into the desk in London. Yeah.
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 Yeah, you were running it from London,
Yeah.
weren't they?
Yeah.
Nothing like an outside broadcast.
Great fun. Great fun.
But I think the lesson from all of it is just like, if you want to do it, you've just got to ask. Like there are so many people in journalism who get in because their parents ask on behalf of them, or their aunts ask on behalf of them, or they just have like more of a knack of like, because they've grown up in it, they kind of know who to ask about what. But like, I think none of us had that
No.
advantage, and you just have to ask, but you have to ask specific people. Like for LBC, I just Googled the managing editor and I spoke directly to him. For BBC Sussex, I did something. Who did I contacted someone actually who was nothing to do with it. I just got the wrong person, but they kindly forwarded it on. You just have to like use your brain, like first name, last name at the organisation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I had a lot of luck with like just emailing editors directly
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
saying, "Hi, can I come in for a week?" and like explaining like who I was. I'm a student journalist and I'm really interested in just seeing how
Yeah.
the newsroom works.
Yeah.
But then they let you in and they let me write articles and stuff for them that
Uh-huh.
then got published. So it was
Yeah.
a really good experience.
People are like tend to be very generous with their time, but like they want to give it to like the right person. So if you email, this is not turning into like a workshop, but I think if you email being like, you know, can I just come in and have a look? I'm interested in politics. It's going to be a no. But if you email in being like, I love this station because of this,
Yeah.
and like, I want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You
It's
know?
like what they teach in career guidance. Like,
Yeah.
look at the place, know what the place is about,
Yeah.
and then give them something back.
Definitely.
that
I used
they
to like
do, you know?
attach like things I'd written that were relevant as well to just be
Yeah.
like, here's an example of.
but not loads. You just want
No,
the
just
one.
like two.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
put-
two.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Perfect.
Be wavy with it. Yeah, like no worries if
And
not.
do you know
it's
when a
fine.
good time to send your email is in the morning? I'd say like crack of dawn, but never schedule it for bang on 7 because you know that they've scheduled it for bang on
Yeah,
7.
yeah. It needs to be 7:02, 7:03, something like that.
But yeah, and then you kind of like, I don't know if you get an email, like especially with like, because I would do a lot of the like, loads of people used to email me at LBC to come in and watch the studio and stuff. And like, if you emailed me at like early in the morning, because I'd be on the tube doing my emails, I'd probably reply being like, yeah, when do you want to come in?
Yeah.
Middle of the day, I've done my shift.
I'm
Do you know what I
going
mean?
home.
Like
Yeah.
it then goes to the back of the pile. That turned into a bit. Did we actually do a Q&A today? I feel like we did.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we had a good mix of like the serious and the unserious.
On the day that the Lord has risen as well, huh?
Are there any topics you've been dying to cover that you haven't got around to? That was Purple Wookie. How do you say that?
I think Purple Wiki.
Purple Wookie.
Which town, city have you visited for PoliticsJOE surprised you the most? Topics I've been dying to cover. I'd love to interview Gordon Brown.
Yes,
How
that's a
about
great
you?
one. I'm just going to use this as an opportunity to plug rent seeking. And if you're in a rental situation that's totally absurd, you're paying thousands of pounds for what you think could be the smallest room in London, or you have a really rogue landlord, send me an email. It's in my Twitter bio.
First name dot last name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Twitter.co.uk.
organisation.
Take a guess if you haven't got Twitter.
Yeah, so many people, when I said about the work experience call out, so many people DM'd me on Instagram being like, I can't find your email. And I'm like, you cannot be a journalist if you cannot find this. It's so easy. Like the first thing they're going to ask you to do when you get into a newsroom is they're going to give you a name of someone and they're going to say, can you get them on the show? And they're not going to give you a number. They're not going to give you an email.
Yeah.
You have
Get
to
them
find
on.
how to get
Yeah.
in touch.
Yeah.
So if you can't even do that first hurdle, it's not looking good.
You're finished. Forget about it.
Yeah.
Town city you visited for PoliticsJOE that surprised you the most. Actually, do you know what? On the top of my head, when I went to Kilcooley last July, I had the best. I went to Northern Ireland for the 4th. Last summertime, or the 12th of July, not the 4th of July. They're over there
Independence Day.
celebrating American Independence Day. The 12th of July, if you're not Scottish or Irish, is this day that people from Ulster Protestant, Scottish Protestant background celebrate the Battle of the Boyne. And it's quite a contentious thing in both Scotland and Northern
You
Ireland.
should go and watch that video. It's a great video.
It's
I
really
really
good.
enjoyed making it. Really enjoyed making it. But went to Kilcooley was like, I think it's something like 98% Protestant, Presbyterian.
98%.
Yeah. It's like
My
complete
God, that 2%. Are they just
enclave.
like, are they Catholic or are they just non-practicing?
Probably non-practicing.
I was
going to
say, they are fighting for their
Yeah.
lives. Jeez.
But I remember I went in with shooter, videographer Peter from the Dublin office, and bless him, the poor fucker went up to Belfast with a Southern registered car on the 12th of July weekend, and we were going to be driving into this housing estate with 98% of people that we interpreted as being sectarian in some way, shape or form. Or maybe we didn't. No, we didn't interpret it that way, but it was a very charged situation we were going into. Had we not had to drive back to Belfast city centre that evening, I would have stayed there all night.
Really?
It was the best fun I've had in so long.
Bonfire is
Bonfire
insane.
night. It's so much fun.
It's so tall.
Yeah. The one that they had.
It's like a film set.
Yeah.
Like, it's, yeah.
Yeah. But there was this
Midsummer.
whole thing
Yeah.
of like,
It's like Midsummer.
they had tricolours on it, and there were boys around the bonfire that knew that we were from the Republic. And we're like, oh, you probably fucking hate this, don't you? You probably hate this. Are you going to cry? Are you going to do this? And playing all these sectarian songs and that kind of thing. But I was like, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I was at the Wolf Tones in Finsbury Park, so I can't really talk, like each to their own. But it was a fantastic night. Really enjoyed it.
You'd recommend attending?
I would. Well, a good friend of mine, who's from the Catholic community in Northern Ireland, has gone to the 11th night bonfires, incognito, fake name. Yeah, my name's William. No bother. Goes in, has a great time, goes back home.
Wow.
They are really good fun if you take away the whole thing of burning effigies and burning Irish flags and this kind of thing. A lot of them don't have effigies on them, it has to be said. A lot of them don't have flags on them. We went to one that did have flags on it. But it was great fun. It was really good fun.
I'm surprised you didn't say Weymouth. Do you remember when we went and we saw that bird? It's going to make me look sick now.
I don't think I know this story.
God. We were voxing.
It was the worst thing I've ever seen. Like, but
bird.
it's going to sound like I'm just being really soft, but I cannot tell you how terrible it looked.
It was like a pigeon or something, wasn't it?
I can't speak.
We went down to...
It was just so unexpected. I think we were a bit hungover. Was I hungover?
Was this during the election?
No, this was long before it might have been the year before the election, was it?
Don't know. It was a beautiful day though. We had lunch on the beach, didn't we?
We did, yeah. We went down for the Bibby Stockholm.
Oh, no,
It
I
was
remember that.
It was a terrible
yeah.
shoot because I tell you why. Because obviously we want to make the point that the Bibby Stockholm is like appalling.
Beautiful day.
It looked like Pontins or something. Like, honestly, it looked the water was sparkling.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
boat, like when the sun's shining, you can't see how dilapidated and awful the conditions are. So we were filming it, and Sean keeps getting shots, going, "Jesus, I want to get on it." It looks it's fucking lovely. Anyway, we're down in the town centre and we're voxing people, and Sean goes, "Oh, look at that bird." I expect to turn around and see some sort of dove. It was like the carcass was just blown out and like it was bloody and like, but it was like meat
horrific.
hanging
What, like
off
a
of
pigeon
it.
or like a seagull? Or?
It was like a pigeon or
On its
something
back.
like a crow pigeon situation, but
And it kind of
was
looked like it was alive, but it had nothing on it.
Yeah, it was like a
Ugh.
cat had gotten to it and just massacred the thing. But like it still had feathers. It still had the whole lot was still
Cute.
It was
intact.
one of the worst things I've ever seen.
I think we might have wrapped the Vox very shortly
did.
after that.
I think it was because, but I was,
Harrowing.
I'm sure I was hungover because I remember it just hitting me in a way
Yeah,
that
you
like,
feel sick.
you know, we've seen some pretty awful things.
Uh-huh.
That was like, that sent me over a cliff edge. Worst thing you've seen on a shoot, Laura?
Worst thing? Oh, well, that feels like sad because...
Oh no, well, don't
Yeah,
give
well,
it
let's not be
sad.
sad.
Jesus Christ. Okay. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up there, won't we?
Yeah, let's do
I
that.
hope you have a lovely Easter Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, enjoy your
It-
Easter.
Comment below and let us know what you're having for dinner. Sean will update you and tell you if you went for the mussels. Or
Yeah,
not.
I'll let you know if I got the...
We'll be on the live chat, perhaps. Should we jump on the live chat just to let them know?
with like a photo of what I'm cooking. Yeah,
Yeah.
great idea. Great
Yeah,
idea.
maybe on the Reddit. See you there.
Might be mussels.